Welcome to Muslims and Mental Health with Sister Heather, a groundbreaking program looking at mental health issues through the biopsychosocial spiritual paradigm.
Welcome back to Muslims and Mental Health. Today we are discussing part 2 in our series on how to talk to our youth who identify as LGBT or Q. And I want to just mention that in part 1, if you missed it, we discussed the identities and those aspects of identity like sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity. So if you haven't seen that, you may want to go back and check it out. And this part, in part 2, we'll be discussing the social realities of these youth and how to help them. I'm going to continue on with Erica Rodriguez, our marriage and family therapist, today. But before I do that, I want to just give you some idea of what some of the statistics around violence toward LGBT youth looks like from the CDC. So according to the CDC, negative attitudes towards lesbian, gay, and bisexual people put these youth at increased risk for experiences with violence compared with other students. Violence can include behaviors such as bullying, teasing, harassment, physical assault, and suicide-related behaviors. According to the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Surveys, the YRBS, conducted during the 2001 to 2009 in 7 states and in 6 large urban school districts, the percentage of LGBT students across the sites who were threatened or injured with a weapon on school property in the prior year ranged from 12 to 28%. In addition, across other sites, 19 to 29% of gay and lesbian students and 18 to 28% of the bisexual students experienced dating violence in the prior year. 14 to 31% of gay and lesbian students and 17 to 32% of bisexual students had been forced to have sexual intercourse at some point in their lives. LGBTQ youth are also at increased risk for suicidal thoughts and behaviors, suicide attempts, and suicide. A nationally representative study of adolescents in grades 7 through 12 found that the lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth were more than twice as likely to have attempted suicide as their heterosexual peers. More studies are needed to better understand the risk for suicide for transgender youth. However, one study found that 55 transgender youth had about a 25% reported suicide attempts. Another survey of more than 7,000 7th and 8th grader students from a large Midwestern county examined the effects of school, the social climate, of homophobic bullying on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and questioning youth, and found that 1. LGBTQ youth were more likely than heterosexual youth to report high levels of bullying and substance use, and 2, students who were questioning their sexual orientation reported more bullying, homophobic victimization, unexcused absences from school, drug use, feelings of depression, and suicidal behaviors than either heterosexual or LGB students. 3, LGB students who did not experience homophobic teasing reported the lowest levels of depression and suicide feelings of all student groups. So absent of the teasing, they reported lower suicidal feelings. And all students, regardless of sexual orientation, reported the lowest levels of depression, suicide feelings, alcohol and marijuana use, and unexcused absences from school when they were in a positive school climate and not experiencing homophobic teasing. So as we can see, the way we treat this socially, we can have a profound effect on our youth. And so today we're going to discuss this in more detail and how we can best help our own community in understanding this and help our children within our community. So I did just talk, Erica, a little bit about some of the statistics, but I want to ask you, about maybe some other positive and social realities for the LGBTQ youth.
I think that when discussing realities for LGBTQ youth, there's a couple things that we need to take into account. That there's also a possibility that it's very underreported. Because a lot of times LGBTQ youth do not want to identify themselves as LGBT or even questioning because of the environment that they're in. So the statistics that we do have and what we've been able to gather is even still not the exact number, because you have to take into account that there's places that it's not safe for them to express themselves, for them to be open about who they are, who they're attracted to, or their identity. So what we've been able to gather has been in large part from areas where the youth have been able to actually identify themselves. So they've had the strength to be able to identify themselves, or have had the ability to find a place where they feel safe, so they can now identify themselves and go into these statistics. So it's important to know that the individuals who have told us of all these negative things is maybe the iceberg of all these other youth who are internalizing it, and we don't find out till it's too late.
Right.
So they've either ended up having a suicide attempt that has been accomplished, and they end up killing themselves, or they overdose because of drug use or whatever it may be. So there's also those that we need to take into account. And there's some that never express themselves and just kind of blend into society so that they don't have to experience it, because they just try to be normal in a heteronormative society, in a society that sees everyone as being straight and as being the gender that they're born. So that's something to definitely know. One of the books, actually, with some statistics that I definitely like to use, came out of the San Francisco State University, and it is a project called the Family Acceptance Project, and it was done by Dr. Caitlin Ryan. And Dr. Caitlin Ryan went ahead and interviewed children and families. And what she was able to find just with the youth and the families that she interviewed was some statistics that mirror and sometimes exceed the ones that we hear through CDC and other individual places that have done these studies for LGBT youth. One of the things that's important to know just right away is that LGBTQ youth have higher statistics of things such as attempted suicide. LGBT youth are 8 times more likely to have attempted suicide. This was one of the things that came out during Dr. Caitlin Ryan's study, the Family Acceptance Project study. They're also nearly 6 times more likely to report high levels of depression. They are more than 3 times more likely to use illegal drugs. And they're 3 times more likely to be high risk for HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. And one of the things that is important to know is how these break down, because some of these can be reactive, such as depression. It's something that happens in your environment because you can't take what's going on, so you end up becoming depressed about it. Suicidality is also a reactive. A lot of times when you're looking at someone who is suicidal, it's because they've gotten to the point where they feel there's no other way out.
Right.
So you're looking at, again, another reactive thing. Use of illegal drugs is something reactive to being able to numb out the world, or finding something that actually gives you some type of happiness, even if it comes at a price. Because the use of illegal drugs come with a price: addiction, death, diseases that you can catch through using dirty needles, or different things like that, or even putting yourself in bad situations when you're under the influence. And also the last one, as far as them being 3 times more likely to have high risk for HIV and sexually transmitted diseases, is I have people try to look at this in the way of saying, if you can't find love where you were raised and your home base doesn't give you the love, then you're going to want to find love from anyone that is willing to offer it. And sometimes that comes with consequences. Sometimes you keep trying to find that love, trying to find that person that's going to save you. So because of that, a lot of times our LGBT youth who have been rejected will put themselves in dangerous situations. Also, another thing that you need to look at that is statistically, if even in Los Angeles County, 10% of the homeless youth in LA County identify as LGBT. I'm sorry, 40% of homeless youth in LA County identify as LGBT.
Wow.
40%. That means that
that's
in LA County. And you're looking at, because individuals come from out of the country, out of the county, out of the United States to come to Hollywood, to come and get services here, because we are the more accepting area. So you have individuals from Oregon, Ohio, Arizona, Texas, even farther out. Usually what happens is if you're looking at the map of the United States, they go to the corners. They go to New York, or they go to California, because that's where it's known to be most accepting. And the reason that this is important to know is because homelessness is a product of a lot of times not being accepted. of rejecting behavior, of being kicked out of your house. And when you're on the streets, a lot of time, the youth have to do sex work to survive. And so that also places you in a situation where you're more likely to get an STD, an STI, HIV, because you're trying to survive in an environment where, unfortunately, you are taken advantage of. So you do what you can to get a hot meal, to get a roof over your head. So and all these are reactions or reactors to negative behaviors. So rejecting behaviors from family, caregivers, from not having a stable base that is accepting. And I think when we talk about mental health and as far as what these youth go through, we need to look at it in a spectrum of rejecting to affirming. And so these statistics that we spoke about originally, the 8 times, the 6 times, the 3 times, is when individuals are rejecting in their behavior to youth and to young adults.
And what is really dangerous about that for the Muslim is that, so in Islam, suicide is a very big deal. Islamically, if somebody commits suicide, we believe that that's what they will continue to do the act for eternity. Just repeat it. And so we also have the concept in Islam of the lesser of two evils, right? So when people are struggling with reconciling their theological beliefs with how a child may express themselves, I encourage them to consider this idea of the lesser of two evils. We don't want people killing themselves. That's a huge sin in Islam. And so we need to put on our compassionate lens and look at this and how we can keep our children in the fold in an accepting place where that they're not going to be killing themselves. Because these statistics are astounding.
Yeah, and again, these are just individuals that you've been able to speak to who have gotten to the point where they're able to talk about it, and not the ones that haven't. I think one thing that is definitely worth knowing and looking at it through a mental health lens is that there's a difference between being confused or conflicted about the ideas and the thoughts but it's your behavior that causes an outcome. So you can be conflicted, but if you have accepting behavior, then you're going to have a youth who has a lower level of statistics. Yet if you are conflicted and show negative and rejecting behaviors, then you're going to have a youth with higher statistics. And I think one of the things to be able to identify is what is rejecting, what is accepting, what is affirming. And when I say it's a spectrum, it's because some people, when an individual comes out to them, when they're able to identify themselves and let you know all the truth about themselves, like be open to you in coming out, some people are okay with it right away. So they're accepting. They understand it's no big deal. They keep going. Now the concept of affirming is moving one step forward. It's not just saying you're okay with it, but asking them how their relationship with their same-sex partner is, asking them how their transition is going from male to female or female to male, joining them in LGBT events, versus what rejecting is. And I think it's very important to understand what the concept of rejecting means and how it takes shape. Some of the rejecting things that we've looked at is the physical violence, the hitting, the slapping, the punching, something as simple as someone trying to say, I'm going to make you more of a man, so we're going to fight. Now that is for a youth who may be transgender and going from male to female, or someone who is gay or who just appears more feminine. It may be that their expression is more feminine. That's actually a rejected behavior because you're fighting them, you're hitting them. It's a physical act of violence towards them. And the youth is taking that as a rejected behavior because if I didn't present this way, then I wouldn't have to fight my dad or my uncles or my big brothers. So that's one of the biggest things, because when people, I think one of the concepts that I love to work with families is everyone wants to do the right thing, just not everybody knows what the right thing looks like.
Right.
I'd like to believe that everyone comes from a place of love and that there's very few individuals who don't come from that place. But unfortunately, I think sometimes through different conflicts and different ideas, what the accepting behavior looks like is actually sometimes rejecting. So the fighting, I'm going to make you more of a man by physically hitting you, by physically punching you so you can take a punch, because you can't be gay if you can take a punch or you know how to fight. Also the thing as far as
and when I hear you say that, what's so disappointing to me when I hear that is just, why do the ideas of masculine and feminine have to be so rigid? Why can't they be more fluid? I mean, in different times, in different contexts, in cultures, I mean, the way we express these things is so different. Why does it have to be, if you're masculine, you have to be a fighter? I mean, that just seems so rigid to me.
And it really is. And I think that goes back to the idea of what a heteronormative society is. When we look at someone, we automatically assume if you have male genitalia, you're male. And you're supposed to fall in love with the female. And you're supposed to do masculine things. And if you're a female, you do the opposites of those. And that's what a heteronormative lens is. So a lot of times what happens is people try to, again, because they care, and out of I want to fix it, will do these things because it makes sense to them in their thought process, in their heteronormative lens. Because I know that this makes sense to me, so I'm going to help my kid because I don't want my kid to be picked on outside the home. So I'm going to pick on him in the home. Not understanding that now he's being picked on at both.
Right.
So it really has to do with the concept of what lens you're looking at the youth through, the individual through. So unfortunately, we do live in a society where there are those huge divides. It's very rare that you'll find that middle. If someone wants to be manly or masculine, they'll express these things. When you think of feminine, you think of these things. And there's very little gray area sometimes. So that's one of the things that has to be looked at and kind of identified within yourself when you're looking at how you're treating another individual who may be in the LGBT community. So we have the hitting, we have the verbal language. You have things about verbal harassment, name calling. Something as simple as someone telling him, oh, well, if you didn't walk like a fag, then maybe you wouldn't get picked on. Not understanding that by using that name, you're rejecting the child. Other things as far as excluding the LGBT youth from family events. Well, your cousins are going to say something, so just stay home.
Right.
Or what your grandma says every time she sees you, so, or changing their appearance. So you know what your grandma's going to say, so dress like a girl. So things like that are rejecting behaviors. Blaming the child. Like going back to if you didn't walk that way. You're blaming the child because of what they're doing and telling them that it's their fault that they would get the harassment. That they get the rejecting behaviors. So that in itself is rejecting. You have things as far as pressuring them to be more masculine or feminine, change your dress, change how you walk, change how you sit. Can you talk lower? Can you talk higher? Things like that are rejecting behaviors. You also have telling your child that they're going to be punished, not only in this world, maybe in the next. Or telling that they don't fit into their culture, that they're not going to be part of something that they've known their entire lives because of who they are. That's rejecting behavior, because then the youth is not only losing that home base, but it's losing everything it's known. Now they're losing their uncles, their aunts, the people that they have picnics with.
So that's going to be an interesting one to navigate in our community, because there is a sense in which if they choose to stay within the Muslim community, some of that's going to be real. I mean, that really will happen. If they are openly identifiable, that actually will happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have the answers to that. We're not going to tackle that one
definitely.
today, but I'm just saying that that would be a wrinkle that would be slightly different than maybe other communities.
And I think the thing is that if a child is questioning, regardless what you're telling them is going to happen even before they know themselves, is already rejecting.
Right.
Telling a 5-year-old you can't wear a dress because if you're gay, you're this. When they're looking at identity versus orientation.
Right.
It's rejecting behavior. So we don't even have to get to the bigger section of it. It's like, how does it start in the minute details?
Right.
Of you're excluding them before they even have a chance to know for themselves. And another one is making it keep it a secret. Like you come out to someone and you're like, okay, you told me, but now you can't tell anyone else. So you're making it almost as if in fact, it's the reality is you said something bad, so now we can't have it go further than this. So those are rejecting behaviors. So those are some
Not to mention
bases.
the other level of anxiety of somebody knowing and then maybe holding that over you.
Exactly. And that's one of the things too, is that you're hypervigilant now. Because if the person you came out to, usually so when you come out to someone, it's the person you trust most. It's that person you feel the deepest connection with. So if they in turn reject you, now you have this hypervigilance of, I can't let anyone else know. Because if the one person that I loved most, that cared most, that had my back, as a lot of kids will say, that was able to support me most, rejected me, how's the rest of the world going to treat me?
Right.
So then they become hypervigilant. So these are just some basic rejecting behaviors that we see that cause youth to have higher statistics, those reactive statistics that we talked about originally. And the reason that I say reactive is because later on in the Family Acceptance Project, what it shows is that the less rejecting you are, the higher positive statistics you can get. I think it's also good to understand what are accepting and affirming acts, what are accepting and affirming behaviors, because there's a lot of negative, but for sure we want to know what the positives are. What is the counterbalance of it? You have certain things like talking about your child, about their identity, openly talking to them about it, not trying to hide it, not trying to push it away, expressing affection to your child even after they tell you. Something as simple as giving them a hug, or still patting them on the back, or if every Wednesday you sit and watch a TV show or the evening news and eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, continuing those rituals that they have come to know. Yes.
Yeah.
Making sure that they still feel that affection as by knowing that the person that they've told, the family member they've told, their family itself, doesn't see them as being ostracized now. The other one is something as simple as supporting their identity even though you may feel uncomfortable. So say you have a female who would like to wear more pants as opposed to dresses, or cut their hair a little shorter. And you've never seen them with short hair, and you don't know how you'd feel about it, but you know it will make them happy. And it's not hurting them in any way. Someone cutting their hair is not going to hurt somebody. So you support them in there while you work through your uncomfortableness. It's not saying you can't be uncomfortable, it's how do you express that? Because we all work through things in different stages. And one thing that I really feel is that family members go through their own mourning process when a youth comes out.
Right.
Because one of the things that adults are really good at is when they see a small youth, a child, one of our family members, we write their entire life out. We know when they're going to get married. We know what their 2.5 children and picket fence will look like. We're already waiting for us to be grandparents and the kid's 5. So what's happening is we're mourning that story we've created. So there's nothing that says that you can't go through a process, because you're going to mourn the loss of a child or the future you felt your child was going to have. And for families who have transgender youth, sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes they also mourn the loss. They had a female, now they have a male son. They had a female daughter, now they have a male son. So they're mourning the death of their daughter. And once they've been able to get accepting and affirming, they are celebrating the birth of their son. So there is a process that goes through it.
You know, it's interesting because whether you have a child who identifies as LGBT, I think most parents go through a grieving process about what they thought their child would be, just from rebellious nature. So, you know, that I think is something that all parents can identify with. And it's a good point, you know, key point for them to relate to, because whether they have a child who is having this identity or not, they can relate to that. Because I think all parents go through some sort of grieving process about the dreams they had for their child versus how their child actually is.
And that's something that's funny, because all parents go through it in one way or another.
Right.
Kids along the spectrum of their life are going to do something that you're like, but that's not the dream I had for you.
Exactly.
And that's okay. Because when we give those dreams to our youth, our children, it's because we love them. Because we see so much in them. But just because they take a different path doesn't mean that they're not going to get to the same end.
Right.
It just means that it's a different path they need to walk first. So I think that's something that's it's good to know, is that we're not saying you can't feel conflicted. Definitely not saying you can't feel confused or angry or frustrated. It's just how do you represent that to the youth?
Right.
How do you make it so that they don't internalize it as I am bad now because I shared with you something that I've been holding in?
So I want to continue this conversation, but I need to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Welcome back to Muslims and Mental Health. Today we're continuing with our Part 2 series on how to help our youth who identify as LGBT or Q. And we're going to continue our conversation. We left off talking about the spectrum of rejecting, affirming, and accepting. And so I'd like to continue that and have you talk about the accepting and affirming.
So like we were saying before the break, one of the major things to know is that I'm definitely not saying that parents, individuals, adults can't be conflicted. It's how do we move from conflicted to be able to best support the youth? And what do we do? How can we express that in an outwardly way to show that we still love them and that there's still someone that we care about? When identifying the spectrum between rejecting to accepting to affirming, there's three main things we need to know. It's rejecting is behaviors that hurt the youth, put down the youth, make the youth feel as if they are to blame for who they truly are, and cause physical, emotional, or mental damage to them. So anything that will cause those reactives, depression, suicidality, substance use, putting themselves in dangerous situations, that may lead to STD, STI, self-harming behaviors. Now, when we look at accepting, is being able to, in the simplest form, it's being able to understand and be okay with and be able to start integrating their identity, their expression, their orientation into day-to-day life. So being able to ask, we've come up with about 6 points through, at the Los Angeles LGBT Center, they have different projects, and one of them was looking at how to support LGBTQ youth and adults. So one of the things that we're looking at is just to move from accepting to affirming. Affirming being not only do you accept it and you start integrating, but you're actively integrating, you're purposely integrating their LGBT identity into your daily life, into your routine. So things as far as recognizing the importance of their LGBT identity through clothing, expression, being able to include them in regular activities with the families, just how they are, dressed how they are, looking how they are. One of the examples is as if a family has a wedding and one of the youth identifies, say, as a lesbian and wants to dress in a masculine manner, or identifies as transgender from female to male and wants to dress in a masculine manner with a suit or a tie, allowing them. Also being able to give them the ability for self-expression goes into that. So not only are you allowing them to express themselves, but you're including them in events, in social events, family events, being affirming and supporting them. Something as simple as your son, who used to be your daughter, who's transitioned to your son, likes baseball, so you buy him a baseball hat. For their birthday, you sign him up for football, whatever it may be. You're also looking at encouraging them to develop appropriate LGBT relationships. And I think that the most important part is appropriate, because this isn't giving them to free reign. I think what happens sometimes is parents don't know how to talk to their youth, and they don't know what's accepting anymore and what's pushing the boundary. I'm not saying take away rules. I'm not take away structure. If you have an individual youth who transitions from male to female and the girls in the house aren't allowed to wear makeup till they're 18, then she shouldn't be different now. Just because she transitioned, she shouldn't have a special rule. That's accepting and affirming, because you're treating her like any other girl in the house. She can't wear makeup till she's 18. So, but being able to say, fine, you'll meet someone if they do have a partner, including the partner in discussions, because what you're doing is you're giving them the ability to want to talk to you and express to you so that they don't find themselves in those reactive situations. And standing up for them, advocating for them in social settings, in family settings, in all environments, in school settings. Just as if someone was to say something about one of our youth in a school, then if they say something about your son or your daughter in the school, you're going to go and talk to them about it. So if they say something about your son or daughter because of their identity or the expression in the school, as long as it's an appropriate expression, such as a dress versus a miniskirt, then you advocate for them. And the last one is participation. Encourage them to participate with their community. Don't ostracize them from the community they now belong to. The only way you can understand is to be engaged, because without that open communication, that's when you do have the reactives. So it's good to know that is a light at the end of the tunnel, is that if you start using these, and again, not saying that you have to go from rejecting to affirming right away. No one's saying that they tell you on a Friday and by the next Thursday you're affirming.
Right.
It's a process. But as soon as you begin to move along that continuum and move in that process, and you're going to be able to start seeing positive reactions right away. In the same Caitlin Ryan study, the Family Acceptance Project that was done through San Francisco State University, we see that youth believe that they can be a happy adult. LGBT youth believe they can be a happy adult 92% of the time if they have extremely supportive environments. They believe that they will be a happy adult 77% of the time if they have a very accepting. But even if you're a little accepting, and this is not saying average, very, or even extremely, we're just talking a little accepting, then LGBT youth, 59% of the time, they found that they will feel that they will be a happy adult. Now, take that, if they're not accepting at all, only 35% feel that they will be a happy adult. In the same token, a youth wants to become a parent in an extremely accepting environment 69% of the time. Because they've been able, almost 70% of the time, they've been able to see that they can continue it and that family is something that's worth it. Now, for rejecting, non-accepting, you'll see that it's only 10%. So you have a 60% difference of them feeling that they can continue a family.
Wow.
You have 92 to 35% of a difference between them just being a happy adult. This is just moving on the continuum. So the low ends are always going to be with the rejecting, but little changes make big progress for our youth and for them to feel that they can move to something better.
So moving on from that, we haven't really gotten into what some of the real dangers they can encounter are if, for example, they are rejected.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about that?
I think some of the real dangers that they face are putting themselves in bad situations, are falling into the substance use and abuse. There is a lot of times when just using illegal substances leads to addiction. And addiction itself leads to its own list of things that come along with it. Such as...
Now, are there typical drugs that, are associated with LGBT youth, or is it just a spectrum of drugs?
It's a spectrum. I think if one looking at all types of drug use, you'd have to look at more of where the individual is and the ability to get what type of drugs are in the environment. Someone in the East Coast or West Coast may not have the same, or will have a larger chance of getting different drugs from, say, someone in Midwest. So I think it really has to do with that. The drug use is whatever they can find. Also what's more popular at the time, and so it's easier to find. Say like meth right now is something that's really prevalent in the community, but it's also something that we're seeing that's prevalent in society.
Right.
Versus something like just like heroin that isn't as prevalent and it also isn't as prevalent in the LGBT community. So it really does follow trends, and it follows demand and all things. So we're looking at like the substance use. You're looking at things such as self-harming. And a lot of times we'll have youth who self-harm. And it can be for different reasons. One, because it's the only way that they're able to feel. They feel that others feel that almost as this, well, it lets me know I'm alive when I don't feel like I really am.
I'm in control.
Yeah. If you have no control on anything else, at least you have control over that. And there's always a possibility that one time it's not going to be just self-harm. And that it can actually lead to suicide by accident. And then you have what we had talked about earlier of them being in relationships. There's a high prevalence of domestic violence with some LGBT communities, especially the younger youth, because they keep searching for that right person to fill that spot, that love that they feel that they haven't gotten. So that's prevalent.
So they're willing to accept just about anything to feel that, or what they think is that.
So if I'm your parent and I've told you that you're one of the most prevalent, let's say you're going to hell, or you're not part of this family anymore, or I should have never given birth to you, and someone tells you you're beautiful and they love you, and that they're able to hug you, kiss you, and then beat you, but they're the only ones that ever said they loved you.
Right.
So you may be willing to take, a lot of times you will take the beating. Or you'll leave that and maybe find something else that continues a cycle, because you've never seen what that positive interaction is.
Right.
There's also, unfortunately, a lot of times our youth become homeless, like I said before, and that they end up doing things to try to keep themselves safe that also lead to the STDs, STIs, HIV, because they're doing things to survive. So it's survival sex is common in the community, unfortunately, especially for youth that are homeless. We even have things to the extreme, which is a corrective rape. And corrective rape is someone, it's seen as far as, say, someone identifies as lesbian and someone is raped because they feel that if they can have sexual pleasure by having sex or being raped by a man, that they really can't be gay. And these are things that do happen. These are things that are out in the community. Boys being beat because they want to be men. Or someone as simple as telling them if a girl is identified as lesbian and is feminine, the problem of someone saying, well, I'll show you what it's like for you to be with a real man, since you're dating someone that looks more masculine, and that rape. So there's a lot of things out there that they have the possibility to encounter because of just who they are.
And I think that you highlight two very important points, which are, and this goes with any child, but, there seems like there are much more dire consequences with the LGBT youth, is that anytime you make a child feel that they're inherently bad or that they are not wanted, it leads down this path. And so that it's just something for parents to keep in mind, that you don't want your child to feel that they're either one, inherently bad, or that they're not wanted. And even if a child is acting on behaviors that you don't agree with, that still doesn't make them inherently bad. And I just think that that's something for your parents to really keep in mind.
And I think a lot of times, even parents that want to be accepting will ask questions like, or say statements like, when are you going to find a nice girl? Without understanding that because of the lens of heteronormative, that maybe their child is struggling with being gay, and a statement like that reinforces that they can't tell the person. So different things like something as easy as changing language to saying, have you met anyone nice? Or is there anyone that you're interested in? Without definitely assigning gender or identity to it, is a simple question. And I think one thing that's important to say is that if parents are struggling, there's something to be said for honesty, for being able to tell your youth, I don't understand, but I love you anyway. Help me with this. or I'm struggling with this, but I still want to support you and I love you. There's nothing that says that you have to automatically tell them. Honesty is the best policy, because if you're struggling, the youth sees it, but you're like, no, I get it, everything's perfect. They know you're lying.
Right.
And so then they start internalizing it again, because anything negative after this big secret is internalized. Anything negative, because again, when we looked at developmental, by the time that they're teenagers, they know right or wrong.
Right.
So they're going to say this is wrong, because if it was right, then you wouldn't be reacting this way. But if you preface it with the honesty, then they at least know, okay, she's trying. And this is one of the struggles, but she's trying. I think that's something that's very important, of being honest with your child. I'm not sure how to work with it just yet,
Right.
but I want to learn. I want to try. Or I still love you. Let me see how I can begin to understand. Those things show your youth that you still love them. They haven't changed. And that you as an individual, as an adult, as their parent, as their caregiver, as someone who loves them, is working with trying to better understand it for themselves. But it's not them.
And so, to build on that, what have you found in your clinical experience to be most helpful for these youth and how the family reacts to their news? And not just the initial reaction, but the days that are following, the weeks, the months.
I think the biggest thing is to not be afraid to have conversations about it. Not be afraid to actually say, hey, let's sit. How do you feel after you came out to me? Are we still okay? Not changing behaviors, continuing set patterns. If you hug your child every morning before you leave to work and say, I love you, don't stop. Because anything that is different is going to be read and interpreted as because of this. Now this happened. Continue to be open, continue to be honest, and try integrating some of those affirming behaviors. Know that even though it's hard, understand that they've given you the greatest gift of really letting you know who they are as a complete person. Because it's easy to lie to someone, but it's harder to be completely honest and risk that rejection. Another thing that I've seen is that youth who have been consistently rejected sometimes have an attitude, because I'll push you away before you push me away. Or they'll be not hyper vigilant, as far as the point is hyper expressive in who they are. Because if I'm hyper expressive, then I don't have to worry about you not knowing. And if you don't like me, at least I know I control it. I have some type of control. So really what you're doing is you're setting up how the youth, how the individual is going to be able to speak to others by the first feedback that they get.
I actually had a case where I had a referral of a youth who was identifying as lesbian, and her family, I didn't end up treating her because her family was so rejecting that she was of the opinion that I'm just going to wait them out, and as soon as I graduate from high school, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it was so sad because there was just no space for any ability, you know, I mean, when I did try to reach out to the family, and they just weren't trying to hear anything.
And the reality is when you're just surviving, you don't give yourself the ability to thrive. So if a youth is just surviving until they're 18, then those key aspects that you learn to transition to adulthood are missed.
Right.
So your ability to thrive depends on your resiliency and other factors.
But also maybe get postponed a bit.
And often is postponed. Because when we learn how to become an adult, when we learn how to function, it's through our main family unit. That's who teaches us what's right, what's wrong, how to act, how to behave, how to, you know, they even teach us a lot of times what type of food we like. So if you don't have that, and if that has been skewed because of the rejecting behavior, then you're stopping that growth.
Okay. And so what resources of support are there? I know you mentioned the LGBT Center here in LA. You know any others?
There's a lot. Actually, no, I'll take that back. There's not a lot, but there is a growing amount. There are LGBT centers in Long Beach. There's the one in Antelope Valley. There's an LGBT center. The Los Angeles LGBT Center is the largest LGBT center. You also have PFLAG. PFLAGs is the Parents Friends of Lesbians and Gays. and that is actually nationwide, and you're able to do that. You also have gay straight alliances, which are usually based in high schools. And so within those centers, you'll have different programs. The LGBT Center has LifeWorks, and LifeWorks is a program that works with youth who are in their early to late teens, all the way up to young adults, as mentoring programs and just support groups. So there, what it is just opening yourself up and just start looking. There's a Trevor Project. There's a It Gets Better. That's another one online. There's a Family Acceptance Project through the San Francisco State University. So there's definitely different things. And most of these are available online. And the majority of them will send you things free in the mail.
And I just want to mention that we have actually this product from the San Francisco State Family Project, Supportive Families and Healthy Children Project that you've been talking about. And if people are interested in it, if you want to send an email to our nafsealertherapy@gmail.com, we will send you a copy.
And the great thing about this is if I have a chance to be able to show it, is that it gives you not only the statistics, but it actually gives it to you in a way that you can plainly see it with different types of visuals. It also highlights things that we've been talking about regarding behaviors to avoid, behaviors that help, and also gives you the ability to see the positive that we were also looking at. And it also has its own different, if you look it up online, you'll see that it also comes with videos that are associated with it. Also, the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles has a great support system for LGBT youth. There's a gender project through Los Angeles that is also amazing work for the individuals who are transgender or who are gender nonconforming, which is they don't conform to the gender that they identify as.
So also, just to mention, within the Muslim community, there's a foundation called Al-Fatiha, which means the opening. It's a registered nonprofit in the United States, so people can Google it and find it. That's an actual Muslim organization. Oftentimes we ask about resources within the Muslim community, they don't exist, but we actually have a few in the Muslim community that are geared toward LGBT.
And that's amazing because sometimes what we need is to, we have another one, Las Familias, or Nuestras Familias, which is a Spanish-speaking one too. And that's the thing, is that sometimes the first step is being able to find someone that you can relate to.
Right.
And then once you're able to relate to someone, then you can start learning. I think the biggest thing is kind of to remember that in the base of it, youth look to the people that they love for support, for confirmation of they're a good person, and for understanding. And if we can't offer those, then they lose a lot of who self is. And if they don't find self within that, then they look outside. And that's when reactive behaviors start.
And so it sounds like, we have first the family and the responsibilities there, but then communally, dialogue would be very helpful, just to continue to discuss how are we going to, manage this and deal with our community in a compassionate way, so that we don't lose people. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to share before we move on?
This is a hard conversation, and sometimes we don't know how to start it, but I think that one of the biggest things is not starting it worth the risk of what happens.
Right.
Because if we are able to even slightly conquer our fears and start the conversation, then we have the ability to work with keeping our children safe. Because as adults,
this conversation saves even one life, then it was definitely worth having.
And even more if it's the life of someone you care about. Because when it comes down to it, I do believe that everyone comes from a place of love. There's very few people again in life that I feel don't come from that place. And it's just sometimes as adults, we have to be uncomfortable to make those that we love comfortable. I think that's just something to kind of keep in mind.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your advice and wisdom and experience with us and your time.
Definitely.
So I'm going to transition now into a few fun questions that we have for you. And so this time I want to ask you, what is your favorite movie and why?
So I'm a huge Disney fan. I think that working with youth and families kind of keeps me young, and so I love cartoons. So my favorite movie is Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I like it, and I am actually the reason I really love it, is because Stitch gets it was made to kind of destroy things.
Oh.
And kind of tear down big cities and all that. But he lands in this kind of broken family and ends up finding love. And that love changes him.
Okay.
He's still not perfect. He still, blows things up and, does different things. But he loves his new family. And because that love actually transforms him to something different.
And this is Lilo's family?
Lilo's family.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my favorite movie.
Yeah, no, I was just laughing about the blowing things up.
Oh, it's hilarious. Because there's a part where he is actually Lilo tells him, "I have to go. I think my dog, because she thinks he's a dog, is throwing a Volkswagen through the house." Mm-hmm. So it's little things like that. It's hilarious to me.
And who is your favorite actor or actress and why?
Wow, that's a hard one. I don't know if I really have a favorite one. Mm-hmm. Seeing as how my favorite things are cartoons, I don't have a favorite.
So maybe Stitch is your favorite.
Well, he's a great actor. I don't think I have one. I do enjoy. I can say that besides cartoons, I definitely enjoy drama or superheroes. Just something different. So
that was the last question I was going to ask you, was what genre you like?
Drama and superheroes.
Superheroes. Okay. So is that like the Avengers or
something
like that?
I think sometimes just a personal self-help tip, self-care is I like to do things that are out of what I normally do. Mm-hmm. So I'll go see a cartoon or I'll go see like the Avengers or like Ant-Man, because it's completely separate from what reality is. Sometimes we need something apart from what we do. So those are it.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're going to be concluding another episode of Muslims and Mental Health. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, or concerns, please reach us at nafshealertherapy@gmail.com. That's NAFSHEALER therapy@gmail.com. And we will be putting links on our adjunctive website, which is nafshealertherapy.wordpress.com, so that you can access some of the things that we've discussed here today easily. And again, I just want to mention, if you are interested in this pamphlet, which contains a lot of great statistics, information, advice, please contact us and we will send you one. Thank you.